very glad to be here, and I really want to start off by telling you, by thanking the task force and CSG for the Pathways Initiative. Reading the report in preparation for today's conversation, I was incredibly proud that AT&T supports CSG, and felt really grateful to live in a country where people are this thoughtful about developing policy. Those of you who've not had a chance to review the report yet, I think what you'll find is a lot of, data-based policy suggestions, a lot of thoughtful recognition of the complexity of these issues, and it was very inspiring to me to read that, and I appreciate so much the work that this committee has done around that. I can brag on you all because I had nothing to do with it other than having the good sense to live in a state where representatives like Representative DeBerry and Leader Norris help us to kind of handle these challenges. But in addition to the really great substantive material in this report, one of the things that I think is especially good about this is the pathways framework, this sort of concept of these policies as a pathway to prosperity. I love that so clearly communicates that none of these policies is intended to be some sort of immediate solution, that this isn't that easy. I like that it communicates that this will take some time and some evolution, and also that there are obstacles. Paths are not always straight and obvious. That you all don't know me well enough to know that I'm giving you my very highest praise by saying that as I read this, I thought a lot about my father. My father was one of those electrical engineers that worked at NASA. He did telemetry work on the Mercury and Apollo missions, and he taught electrical engineering at a university for 35 years. So he was very much part of that generation that believed in the power of problem solving and education. And he loved that expression by H.L. Mencken, quote, that there's a simple solution to every problem and it's usually wrong. And so he would have very much appreciated this report. I really liked the fact that the report focuses on a variety of inputs, places to build out education policy, K-12, higher ed, workforce alignment. So I know that Leader Norris kind of wanted me to participate in the conversation today for a couple of reasons. One is my AT&T experience, what our experience in Tennessee has been around this skills gap issue, and what we are doing internally around that. And then also my work chairing the Drive to 55 Alliance, which is a group of business leaders who have come together to support our policymakers around the Drive to 55 initiative, as we call it in Tennessee, the goal of raising the level of post-secondary attainment in our state to 55% by the year 2025. And we are very much focused on helping people understand that we mean by that a combination of 4-year college degrees, 2-year degrees, and other types of post-secondary credentials that will be necessary to not only have an equipped and prepared workforce, but to be able to communicate to the rest of the world that workforce is in fact equipped. So one of the things that in the report, there's a great example trying to kind of hypothetically articulate this skills gap concept, and I think that the report actually refers to this hypothetical employee as a Verizon employee, but I will not take that personally. I can assure you that we are having the same experience at AT&T, and basically talks about the idea of, if you think about a few years ago, a telephone installation or repair technician, was primarily tasked with doing something that was fundamentally mechanical. You arrive at a work site, you connect something together, and you need to be able to draw upon some technical skills, but a lot of it was about dexterity, about the use of tools. And today, as we have transitioned our network away from hardware-driven networks and toward intelligent networks, software-defined networks, what we're asking those folks to do is no longer tighten this connection. It involves some of that, but on top of that, we're also asking them to configure a network, to diagnose issues with the network, not using a simple meter, but rather using their laptop, and their toolkit now is much more soft tools than it is the traditional tools that we think of repair people using. So we are, as that has kind of changed for us, we've hit a few moments where it really was highlighted. When we entered the television business in Tennessee a few years back, the television product that we provide, UVerse, is an IP-delivered television product, which is a terrific innovation because Internet protocol allows us to much more efficiently move data across our network, and that meant that rather than sending every bit of content to your set-top box and then waiting for you to tell the box what you wanted to watch, we are able to let your remote control tell something further back in our network what content you want us to deliver, and that allows us to get a whole lot more content. So there's a lot more room for a lot more high def, there's a lot more room for a lot more varied content. So it's a terrific new innovation, but it meant that installation was going to require those premise technicians to do some new configuration, new diagnostic work that we hadn't prior to that needed that type of employee to do. As we were looking to fill a lot of new jobs that we added because of that new opportunity in Tennessee, we found that we were going through 60 to 65 applications to find one person who we felt confident that we could train to do that job. So we were not looking for people who had a certification of any sort. We were just looking for people who could pass a sort of fundamental test about principles of electricity and had some pretty fundamental digital literacy skills. I knew we could give them a laptop or tablet and they could use it once we taught them what they'd be doing with it. And it was a real eye-opening moment to us. Think how often you have folks like me come to talk to you as policymakers and say, isn't this great? If you will change the law in this way, we will add X new jobs. And then to turn around and realize that you can't really add those, adding the job without a person to fill that job is not a particularly meaningful moment for the state. So in the 5 years or so since we experienced that, it's not just television, it's almost every single service that we deliver that requires that same expanded ability in skills, and it has become something that has it becomes sort of job one for us in figuring out how we're going to maximize our impact in the state. What we also found out, though, in around that same time, was that this was not just a problem we were experiencing in the pool of potential employees. This was a problem that we were experiencing in our own existing employee base. And we have a great group of employees. We want to keep those employees. I don't want to throw them back in and start fishing for new ones. But we actually came to realize this as a result of a kind of head count forecasting exercise we were engaging in. There was a day where somebody plugged in all of the inputs and came to the really good news that by the year 2025, if we just have natural attrition and the expected hiring, we're going to have the exact right number of employees at AT&T, and that's great. Until we realized they had the exact wrong skills. And what were we going to do about that? So we began an internal massive kind of retraining process that gives our employees the option of attaining additional credentials, many of which they can use with us or in other opportunities if they pursue those. But it was a complicated thing for us to figure out. How do we figure out what to invite them to do? How do we design a curriculum around a kind of foundational information so that those folks would know which things they might want to further pursue? We are not higher ed experts, and this is sort of, this wasn't a function that we had done before then. It's been very successful, and it has illuminated a lot of things for us. One that I think is probably really relevant to your thinking about education policy, because I would describe our employee base's response to this effort in, folks fall into two categories. And it really jumped out as I read the conclusion in the report that talks about preparing people to have the aptitude and attitude to perform in jobs, that there were some folks that you could tell really felt disappointed with the news that we needed to do this retraining, that we need to do this sort of upskill, that it felt like, well, that's not fair. You've kind of broken your promise to me. You told me I was going to do this, and now you're asking me to do something else. There was another group of employees who were delighted, and you could tell these were employees who sort of, if you told them, hey, you're going to do the same thing every day for the rest of your career, they would have, been very unhappy with that news. And helping to equip a workforce to have that attitude is going to take, I think, a real cultural shift in addition to some of these kind of specific retraining exercises. And it's a lot of the K-12 work around standards and curriculum design that focuses on that kind of problem solving, that sort of getting to the moon, trying to do new things, skill set that we sort of associate with that great generation of folks who were thinking about getting to the moon. We have talked a lot in Tennessee about what is it that you do to engage young people in STEM fields. What do you, I love biographies about some of the real innovators in the communications field, and so many of them grew up on farms. And you think about the, taking things apart, tinkering. Every watch my father ever had, he took apart and put back together. Well, in our kind of more solid state world, what is tinkering for a kid today? And what I would say it is it's coding. I mean, these things, the software is the guts of that watch today, and the code, changing the code is the way you tinker. But figuring out a way to introduce that to young people is a challenge, but our experience in seeing that attitude difference really highlighted the importance of that kind of engagement. We're doing well with the stuff we're doing internally at AT&T, but it is still something that we have to think a lot about. It's tough work. The other area that I just wanted to touch on is the work that we're doing in the Drive to 55 Alliance. It was really a great thing, and I think a great way to get a lot of political buy-in from the business community when Tennessee leaders in the government realm reached out to those of us in the business community to say, what do you need? What are you seeing in your employee base or in the pool? What kind of skills, if we designed a curriculum at this community college just for you, what would it look like? And that kind of alignment has been something that made it very easy for us to get folks to agree to join this alliance. But one of the first thing that we really focused on doing was participating in recruiting volunteer mentors to serve the students who were participating in the Tennessee Promise Scholarship. That is Tennessee's program to provide a last dollar scholarship for students to attend 2 years of community college or technical college tuition-free. For so many of these students, they were already eligible for almost all of the cost of that education, so it was something that funding made sense because of that and because it is a last dollar scholarship. But because we're trying to reach a population who are probably among the first in their families to attend any kind of post-secondary education, these are folks who had a lot of questions, were navigating a path that maybe their family had not navigated. And the Tennessee Promise Scholarship, I think, is really a uniquely designed program in that it requires the pairing of the student with a mentor in order to remain eligible for the scholarship. And when I first heard that, I thought, oh, well, that makes sense because these kids are like my dad was. He was a first-generation American, first generation of his family to attend college. And so that was something that, was new. His family certainly didn't know a lot about what going to college was like. But my experience as a mentor has made me realize that most of these students are not at all like my father was, or at least not in the same position, in that not only do they not have adults in their lives who have experience with college, unlike my father's family, they have a lot of adults in their lives who have very high skepticism about the value of post-secondary education. And so again, it highlighted this sort of need for a culture or philosophical shift. And the pairing of mentors with these students, I think, gives us this terrific opportunity for kind of cross-pollinating between students and mentors in a way that I think is just really exciting. This will be the second year that I'll serve as a mentor, and one of the students that I mentored last year, I've stayed kind of more closely in touch with, and she is actually pursuing a 4-year degree. The kinds of questions that she asks me are not questions I know the answers to. They relate to many of the other areas that were described in the Pathways report around poverty, hunger, crime. But the best thing I think that's happening by our interaction is that she is learning that when you encounter an obstacle you have not seen, you ask and you figure it out. And I think that is a big part of this sort of shift in thinking about how all of us are going to live now in this new digital era where we have to learn new things all the time. Having a greater tolerance for asking for help is going to be an important component about that. But I think the other, maybe most politically important point of this mentoring process for all of you is that I think more than 9,000 Tennesseans last year volunteered to be mentors. I think we're at 9,300 for this year. Those are thousands of people who are going to build the political capital that you all need in order to not just implement these policies, but stay the course as we have time to see them deliver results. And that will be, a public that is better informed about things that they might just have had no way to have ever encountered before. I think it is going to elevate our political discussion past a lot of anecdotal or kind of easy slogans and more toward this sort of rich data-based policies that are outlined in this report. And I just want to end with this one little point. It's the other reason I like this pathways metaphor. When I think about why those folks that don't respond well to the retraining and upskilling that we're doing at AT&T, what's making them feel that way? I think they have a sort of nostalgia or longing for what's behind them on the path. They feel like they're being forced down a path away from someplace where they want to be. And regardless of whether you think there's really an option to stay there, I actually think there is, that place is gone. So if you liked it better, sorry, it's not there. But I actually don't think the point at the beginning of the path is a better point than the one at the end. To the extent that technology is driving the need for a lot of these changes, we are at a time where digital technology innovations in that space are about to explode in a way that is going to unlock human productivity. And I don't just mean prosperity in the financial sense. I mean, civic engagement, spiritual engagement, artistic expression. We are going to have the opportunity to live in a world where so much more is available to us, and this path is about getting us ready to live there successfully and take advantage of all that. So none of this is something we should be sad about. This is really good news that we are on this path, not bad news, and I think that's going to be an important part of communicating why we should all be pursuing it.